Howdy all, Wyrm here. Welcome to episode 7 of the Class Lore series. We are headed back to the nation of ul'dah to explore the lore behind a class that is the choice of many, both experienced and novice alike, when it comes to the peoples of Eorzea and the players who call it home. That class is the fist-throwing, speed-kicking melee fighter, the Pugilist. First off, as always, let's go over the official lore description of the Pugilist from the FF14 website. The path of the Pugilist is one of incessant training, aimed at mastering the traditional techniques of hand-to-hand combat. Though pugilists command formidable power when unarmed, they are wont to use metal, leather, and bone weaponry to maximize their destructive potential. Their preference for fighting at close quarters makes negotiating distances an absolute necessity. Many among them accomplish this by avoiding burdensome armour, allowing for maximum mobility while they move in for the kill. A perfect description of the pugilist and their full toolkit. The fist was the first weapon to be wielded by every race, and in the modern day is the first and true weapon that everybody wields. The beginnings of what will become the pugilist arts can be traced back to the early days of the Colosseum in Belladea, the state that preceded ul'dah. In these times, the Colosseum was similar to the bloodsands of today, with one main difference. During those early days, a fighter's body was their weapon. These fights consisted of competitors beating on each other with their fists until their opponent could no longer stand up. Men and women trained day and night, honing their abilities and putting them on full display for the paying customers. The ability of using one's fists for combat quickly developed into a fighting art. As time passed and the fighting in the Colosseum evolved, many competitors began taking up weapons, such as the sword, the lance, and the shield. A divide began to form as a result in regards to what way competitors wanted to fight, using the arts of the fists or the utilization of armed combat. This divide led a small group to break away and fully devote themselves to training in hand-to-hand combat. It started off as a group of like-minded fighters and enthusiasts, teaching each other and offering support. This became the norm until the appearance of a fighter that changed everything. On that day, a now legendary fighter stepped onto the bloodsands. Her name was Cornelia, and she quickly became a master with the pugilist arts, rising to fame and glory by besting all who stood before her. These feats on the bloodsands led her to being named the head of the pugilist organization. Stories of her achievements spread far and wide. As a result, more and more people ventured from across the realm to study the pugilist ways and spar under her watch. The organization continued this upward trend and dedicated itself to training and perfecting the arts. Around 50 years ago, this group renamed themselves to the Pugilist Guild, and is in many ways the same guild that exists today. The arts that the Pugilists teach can be found wielded by practitioners across Hydaelyn, from the grand companies of Eorzea to the armed forces of the Garlean Empire. Even though their main armament is the gloved and clawed weapons they're so famous for, the arts of the pugilists extend to all hand-to-hand techniques, from the fist to the foot. In fact, they are known just as much for their powerful kicks as they are for their punches. As for their choice of armour, when it comes to fighting on the bloodsands, they prefer as little armour as possible, and always of a cloth and leather variety, so to offer protection while not hindering the fighter's movement in any way. Masters of the pugilist arts have become literal weapons in their own right. They are capable of closing the gap instantly between themselves and their foe to deal deadly strikes and have the agility to avoid any counterattacks. To reach this level, it requires the user to train endlessly and break one's limits. Mastering the arts of the pugilist leads the warrior of light to an encounter with a monk from the lands of Alamigo. In terms of the progression of the pugilist art to the monk art, the pugilist allows us to master our body and hone it into the perfect fighter. The arts of the monk continues on this, but opens up the path to further improvement, both mentally and spiritually. That is the cultivation and opening of the 7 chakras of the monk, to unlock greater power, the power to steal one's body and spirit and move like the wind. And that just about does it for the lore of the Pugilists in FF14. Thanks for watching everyone. If you enjoyed this video or found it helpful, hit that like button, and feel free to subscribe if you want to. Thanks all, and now, as always, have a good one.